to this week's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Liz Rinaldi, SVP at Rinaldi Advisory Services. Thanks for joining me, Liz.
Thanks, Jesse. Great to be here.
It's great to have you on the program. I'm looking forward to hearing your story. I mean, I've had the pleasure of meeting you a couple times, even before you joined, RAS, and decided to just kind of speak with you today. So thank you again for joining me.
Yeah, no, it's been exciting. I think the first time we met was at your event with Great American. And yeah, you've been a beacon of light at the conferences that we were just attending. So it's always great to have a friendly face.
Running around probably just as fast as faster than I am, and you're just like, oh, there he is. Why is
Yeah.
Jesse? All his meetings are at the bar. Yeah.
Well, is there a chair? Yeah.
Bird of a feather, I suppose.
Well, and you get it too. You know how those things are and how you're running around. It's nice to sit down and
Oh
take
yeah,
a.
oh yeah, absolutely. I think at that EF Cares event in Cincinnati, I think there was three Rinaldis on a panel.
There were, yeah, it was me and Bob and Ed, and in attendance was my brother-in-law, Mike Kaplan. So yeah, it was fun. It was a fun take. You can kind of get a glimpse of what family dinners are like with those. I mean, B Bob and Ed are one thing. You add Vince and everybody else into the mix and like talking with your hands and all the stories, man.
Yeah, I think Vince was the first Rinaldi I ever met.
Oh yeah, when did you meet him?
Um, I want to say 2006, 2007. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I can imagine there's not a lot of quiet time during any dinners.
Especially not when the three brothers are together. It's if you can imagine the banter, it's quite
It'd be
fun.
great. It'd be great. And then if it is quiet, you can just throw some fuel out there and then just watch it.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if you ever got to meet Anne, Vince's wife, my mother-in-law. Oh, she's amazing at it. She comes in all quiet and drops a little bomb and walks away. Like talk about goals.
Awesome. Well, Liz, for the people in equipment finance who haven't met you yet, do you mind just kind of introducing yourself and your career so far?
Yeah. So I've been in the lease and finance industry now for about 15 years. I started off my career as a due diligence analyst after I graduated college from USF at Raymond James as a due diligence analyst on the asset management side. So, had an internship there originally in marketing and then switched over from there and, a great learning experience, studied for my CFA. Lots of fun, lots of data, lots of spreadsheets. Then at some point, I knew I wanted to move into a more client, customer-facing role. Spreadsheets are great and all, and I do enjoy them, and I like spending about 50% of my time in them. But being able to get on the phone with clients and talk about things, I really kind of found a passion for it, which is what led me, I guess, to the equipment finance industry. So I had been in Florida at that time. And it was 2009 that I decided I wanted to move back to Cincinnati. So I guess by 2010 I had, and I had a couple jobs lined up, but then, of course, it was up after the financial collapse, and everybody went on a hiring freeze. So I kind of went looking for a role that was exactly what I just said, somewhere in between finance and sales, customer facing, marketing. And that's how I was approached. Well, so I was working with a recruiter and they were like, well, this job came across our desk and honestly, we didn't know how to fill it. Kind of sounds exactly what you're talking about. And it was a job at Summit Funding Group.
Okay.
So I was working with as in a sales support role for the healthcare team. And that's where I learned all about the industry. And I had just some great mentors, not only within that team, but in general, and really got to learn all the ins and outs. I'm somebody that's always been better learning by doing and talk about learning by doing. I mean, you have to do in a sales support role, you got to do credit, you got to do admin, you got to do docs, you got to, um, but talk, and that was the last job I had where I was in office. But man, oh man, did I take advantage of that. I was in everybody's cubicle asking a ton of different questions. So credit learning about that. I had the CFO that's still there, Carl Zwilling. I ran into him at the ELFA this year. Um, I tell you, there were sometimes he looked at me like, again, you're in line to come into my office again. But he was so fantastic.
I picture that face that he makes because every time I see him, he's like, God, what do you want?
Right? And I'm going to push those limits and ask you to, like, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing this? And so, sometimes he would have a really, really great question, and then sometimes I would have a rebuttal, and he would approve it. So, really had to. But anyhow, that's where I got my start, and then I sort of decided, hey, I'm doing a lot of these things and making a lot of business for a lot of outside salespeople, so I should maybe do that. Um, and so I got an opportunity to do outside sales, but I was a generalist at that point in time, right? Like as you're getting into the industry and you don't really know. I knew that there were facets that I didn't want to dive into.
Sure.
Copiers, for instance, there were a ton of people going after copier business. Margins were low and seeming there. So that didn't really interest me. At the time, healthcare was kind of struggling. So I did have a lot of, great healthcare vendors, but I sort of expanded into transportation, but then really got a hold in the IT and AV space. So I got a few vendors that I did some. I think where I found myself getting traction were in the unique structured deals with assets that people didn't quite understand and project-based lending. So figuring out ways of getting at Summit, the contracts that we had in place and the processes we had in place and making them work for the deals in order to get project-based financing done for, especially in the AV space. So that
Yeah,
was,
those are.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, keep going, keep going.
So at that point in time, I was approached and I moved over and started working with the team at VAR Technology Finance. So they specifically worked in and they were recruiting heavily for experienced people in that space. VAR had been historically kind of ground up, teaching people how to do everything, but they had grown so rapidly, they were looking for outside people. And so I was approached, and I really wasn't, as most great experiences, I really wasn't looking for it. It sort of found me. And I really, the people that I spoke with and talked with, I was just blown away by. So I did make the decision and I moved over and started working at VAR. And that was within 2 months after I moved over there was when they were acquired by Leaf.
Okay.
So I'll say they probably saw the same things I did with the team there, and moved them in. And wow, that was crazy and fun. And I learned a lot. And I still keep in touch with most everybody that I worked with over there. So that is where I moved over to an account manager role because they did a lot of large vendor programs. And shout out to my boy Kirk Sipes. He and I, very quickly, he understood that I was more of a business development person versus an account manager. And so I was like, okay, no, this is my account. I'm going to come with you on these. And he's like, let's go. So we ended up traveling all over, and kind of the same thing I did at Summit, did at VAR, like trying to get them to understand the project-based financing that I did on the AV side. I got to do that at VAR. And actually, I just got an email from Michael Gallo, who I worked with ad nauseum on the contracts to be able to get that done, but he did it. And an email just popped up from him. Always keeps going. But yeah, it's always been, I guess, for this space, what I've always found very exciting is the technology. I'm always been a person who is forward thinking. I see new technology or even just new processes, new ways of doing things that are more efficient or exciting. And I think this industry is very much like that. I've heard this a gazillion times this year, but it is a dynamic industry. And it is because if all the technology, not only internally that we all need to use, how fast that's progressing, but the technology that other organizations have to use and how we can help them acquire that. And I've always worked with vendor programs, and I've liked that. That works for me because of the way my mind works. You get the relationship and you help them build the program and you help them structure specific programs based upon their launches. And it's a really, for lack of a better word, intimate relationship that you have with them, and really as a camaraderie, and you work with them. You're not working for them. And I don't know, I've always enjoyed that. The loyalty and the relationships of what I've carried with me throughout my career.
Same page. I mean, there's reasons why they call this industry the Hotel California. It's like, good luck getting me out of here. And as long as
Yeah.
you, as long as you have a good reputation, you do a good job. I mean, the sky's the limit.
Talk about never leaving. In the role that I'm in right now, do you think anybody actually really retires from this industry? Everybody still doubles. I haven't seen anybody successfully retire from equipment finance.
No, they just move on to some other facet of like, okay, I can do this. I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It pulls you back in. And I think it is because of the relationships. It's like you said, it's a small world. I think somebody very early on, like I said, told me, never burn any bridges. Um, you know, Everybody's going to understand, like, people move on from certain roles for whatever reason, but, always appreciate the time that you have and everything that you've been able to learn. And that served me well because I've kept in touch with every organization I've ever worked for.
Yeah, and some of the closest people in the industry might even be considered competitors. But there's
Mhm.
enough for everybody, and people have their own niches, and it's just like, come on. It's like, I'm not to be corny, but it's sort of for the greater good of the industry sometimes, where it's like, it's good competition is not bad.
No, it was kind of the light bulb moment when I moved over and I was like, ah, yeah, we're competitors, but friendly competitors, right? And the further along I got in my career, the more I saw it as, oh, I've seen my old colleagues and what they've been able to do, and just, how cool it is. And now being on this side where, I've worked for 5 different leasing companies and different acquisitions and iterations, right? Um, but there are specific niches for everybody, and everybody can be successful. And I think through the experience of working for multiple different leasing companies, you learn that, okay, not everything is for everybody. And you have to ask those questions before you move over to make sure that it is a really good fit for the business you want to do. So,
Absolutely. As long as people don't take that scarcity mentality where it's almost like they sabotage because
yeah.
it's mine, 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 mine. It's like, wait a minute, like, really? Like,
Yeah.
no,
So, and as a salesperson, when you move over somewhere and you're like, well, this is the business we talked about, right? Like, if you don't ask those hard-hitting questions with an organization, I'll say when I moved over to VAR, what got me there was Chelsea Barron, who's now the president of the IT division at Leaf. I was like, it was no fluff. We sat in a room and I was like, do you do this? Do you do that? And she was like, yeah. And it was like rapid fire, like, that this is going to work kind of situation.
I run into that more now than ever. I mean, I'm sure you guys do too, where you sit there and you go into an opportunity and they're like, okay, what's the ask?
Hmm.
Are you, number one, are you going to listen? Two, like, okay, the skill sets that we have, okay, where's this going to go? And then you have to, last thing you want to do is get 6 to 9 months into one of these engagements that we do and then be like, oh, like, I don't know if this was the right fit.
Yeah. True. I think that's how.
It's happened to me. It's happened to me. I'm going on my third year doing it, and it's happened to me once. And after
Yeah,
like 3 months, it's just like, you know what? These are the ground rules. It's just not working. Sorry.
absolutely. And on both sides. And if it's not going to be a good fit, it's not going to be a good fit. I've always loved and I think that was what Bob told me that finally got me to be like, okay, was we don't have to take on everybody, right? We don't have to work with people we don't want to work with. And vice versa. If we get into it and we find that it's not a good fit, we're going to be completely upfront. Like, I don't know if there's a value that we're going to add to this. Um, but for the most part, I mean, talk about crazy and fun. Just being on this side of it and working with all different types of people and different types of organizations. I mean, it's been incredible.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question, where it's like going from an EF organization to being a service provider. Now, granted, in a business development role, you're
Mhm.
out there with multiple people at all the times and building those relationships. So, um, but now it's just as a service provider, it's like, wait, what's going on here? Like, this guy, because you can work with anyone. I mean, you can
Yeah.
work with service providers, independents, banks, captives. There's no limitations there.
No, yeah. I mean, like you said, there are a lot of things that are very similar. I mean, it's the relationship management, it's um, the understanding the client. Like when I was going after vendor programs, like I could tell pretty quickly in a few conversations if they were going to be a good partner for me. If it's not going to be a good partner, I'm not going to waste my time going after it if it doesn't fit in the box of what we're looking at. And then when we got those relationships going, um, wanting to service them to the highest level possible. So those things definitely align. I think it's um, going from what's been really nice is I'm somebody who really likes to understand every single facet of it. When you're on the equipment finance side and you have goals and responsibilities, you don't get as much time to do that because you've got to get a lot of money.
Yeah.
In my last couple of roles, it was, my task was to do large vendor programs. So there is a longer sales cycle to that, right? And that was always the understanding is to set everything up properly so that when the volume is there, you're knocking it out of the park and making them extremely happy so that they want to stay with you forever. Um, the same thing is sort of applies, except we have a much smaller group of clients, right? So we can really deep dive into every facet of their organization. And that's really a lot of what the first 3 months when we're onboarding a customer, it's really understanding that. And we kind of do that through multiple different ways. First of being, looking through the financials, but really I will say all the things that I had a little bit of exposure to, it's now been a lot of exposure. So, as Bob would say, I have been drinking from a fire hose, but I've had the best people to ask the dumbest questions to. So,
That's a great line.
we've got Bob, we've got Chris, we've got Harry, now we've got Nancy and Mike Varney and Justin Vogel and Deb Rubin and you, like everybody along the way that I'm like, you've seen me. We talked about this when we were at when we were at those conferences, and I'm like, deer in headlights. What were they just talking about?
Fantastic. It's
It's fun.
fantastic. So what was it when Bob approached you and sat there and said, "Hey, Liz, let's go." Like,
Um, so so I started off in the industry as Liz Parker, right?
huh?
And I've always been somebody who's probably taken the hard way to learn as much as I possibly can and kind of grow my own book of business. And I had a lot of pride in that. And so I'd never worked with any of the Rinaldis, which I think is a thing that a lot of people don't realize is I got into the industry myself. I've had the best mentors, don't get me wrong. I've had Vince, Bob, Ed all along the way to ask, well, what do you think about this? And in their very Italian way, giving me great advice. But So it was really like, well, what is consulting? What are we really doing? What do we do here? What do you do here? And when he sort of went through, in an essence, the nutshell of what we do, there's so many different facets of it. I think the RAS itself started because Bob tried to retire. And then he had so much knowledge and so many friends in the industry that people kept coming to him and wanting his advice. And he was like, hey, I should do this. I mean, you know the story better than I do. Um, and from that point to where it is now, bringing on Harry and then Chris and then me. When he really, I was like, I'm not going to be able to know everything that you know, Bob. I can't slip into that role. He's like, no, but you've got a ton of vendor experience. And you know that business very well. And a lot of our partners or our clients are looking for expertise in that. And right away, we had 2 or 3 clients that I could immediately jump in and add value to as far as that goes. So it was kind of that, and then, how was it going to be working with Bob? Right? Like he's fantastic. Don't but I've seen him in the capacity of like I've asked him just the most random questions via text. Like, what do you know about this organization? Do you know anybody who's writing business in Puerto Rico? Like he's sort of just
Well, the good thing about Bob right now is I think he's probably still changing some diapers. So at least he can answer when he's doing that.
yes. Yeah.
So it might not
Uh,
be a stressful thing, right?
yeah. Well, and it's fun because I was just there, right? I was just holding down a job while having changing diapers and doing all the things, I think, in this age that we're in, a 2 career household is the norm and the balance and the understanding of everything. He gets it. Uh, he's got crazy amounts of energy and he works all hours of the day. But he doesn't expect that. I mean, I do too. I just choose to not respond to emails past certain hours. Um, but no, I mean, when he really like approached me about it, it was an opportunity. How could I pass that up? It's not only learning, coming over and getting to do some of what I have been doing, but learn everything else. I mean, I would have been an idiot to pass that up. So when I really like what he did, he was like, okay, don't look at me. Don't ask about me. Go look at Chris's bio. Go look at Harry's bio. Go have conversations with them and then understand that we've got experts from all the different facets of the industry. And this is what we're working on here. It was that, and we'll probably have to edit this out, but there's a no asshole policy.
I mean, this is PG-13. We're fine.
I mean, there's been, and that's a relative term, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But you don't have to work with anybody that you don't want to work with. And after meeting Harry and Chris and really understanding what my role was going to be at this organization, like I said, I was gonna be a total idiot to pass this up. So, and then coming over, there's still, even though he's family, right, a question mark of like when you join any new organization, is it really what everybody said it was going to be? And it was that and more.
Say
Like,
6 months scorecard. Yes.
I'm sorry, say
six
that again.
months. 6 months in, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just fantastic. I mean, since I don't give Bob too many compliments to his face, I mean, the way that he can talk about so many different subjects is kind of given
Yeah.
his his experience in the industry. It's the way that he talks to people that I found just incredible. He listens and understands where that person is and will be able to speak to them at their level. which, and as you know, standing right next to him at work, as we were at all these conferences this season, I can tell you that it's a skill that not very many people have, and it's incredible.
No, I would agree. I mean, watching his motor and seeing him go, and he's very personable, very approachable. I mean, it's just, I don't know, like a beacon of light, basically.
Yeah.
He just keeps going. He just keeps
Yeah.
going. But,
Well, and what he and I are similar about, like, so it's like, you know, we have fun, but you know, that's another relative term. Fun to me is like going to an escape room where you're challenged and your nostrils are flaying and you're fully into immersed into it, like a challenge.
every idea is not a great idea. Stop. I hate those people that you go to an escape room and they're like, we just have to throw everything out there. No, you don't. It has to be an educated guess, please.
Yeah. Now I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. Who was that person you were in that room with? And next time we're in town, I now know that we're going to be finding ourselves in an escape room together.
Absolutely. Now, yes. So you really know somebody where you're like, okay, solves complex questions well.
Oh man.
It goes back to the comment you made earlier. I just asked a bunch of stupid questions, and there was all right, I didn't date myself, but there was a South Park episode where the teacher goes, "There's no stupid questions, children, just stupid people." Just like, wow, they really said. Now it definitely maybe has to be edited, or maybe this will be the last one. Who knows? We'll see.
No. Well, how do I gauge that? So when I say that when how do I phrase it? Ego can get in the way of efficiency, in my opinion, right? So I typically set any sort of ego aside. I have confidence in all of my capabilities, but it's the ego where you come in and you think that people need to hear everything you have to say in order to prove yourself. I threw that out the door 10 years ago.
I don't blame you. I mean, I feel dumb all the time when I ask why. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, well, hasn't he been in the industry for 20 years? I'm like, yeah, but I haven't been on that side, and I don't know what that means. I'm not going to fake it and pretend. I could Google it real quick, but why don't I just tell you I just don't know it?
Yeah. Well, it's that, and then being, yeah, just like you said, so not feeling like you can't ask questions. And I would say, oh, don't know if you can hear that, but that was my daughter calling. Um, so if you are afraid to ask those little questions, you're not going to get the answers you need in the fastest amount of time, and you're not going to learn as quick as you can. So
Sure.
when I come into an organization, I've done it quite a few times now. Um, I'm really quiet at first. I'm really like kind of sitting there absorbing to the point where people don't think I have a lot to contribute. And I love it at about month 9 or 10 where I'm in and somebody gets something wrong in a meeting and I can be like, well, and then I ask a couple like very simple questions and people still think that that I'm not getting it. And then I'm like, well, yeah, I just wanted to confirm da 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 da. And then you give them the reasoning around it, and then you see like, oh, that is just about the best feeling in the entire world when people are like, oh, I didn't realize that that was all in there. That's what they've been doing for the past 7 months, 8 months.
Hey, relatable, because it's almost as you get into some of these consulting things, it's like that imposter syndrome. Where like,
Hmm.
oh, yeah, he's a nice guy, great dinners, funny. When you sit him in a room, sometimes it's extremely quiet, and it's like, yeah, because I'm analyzing every single thing that's going on, and then all of a sudden you get those every now and then. People are like, okay, guys, paying attention. I see it.
Right, right. And it's it's like I said, it's about having fun and getting out there and meeting people. But that can often be, especially on the sales side, like I told you, my degree was in finance and I did so, but people coming in and me being in sales and business development, nobody expected me to understand how to do the pricing. very quickly, like I became at most organizations the person that everybody came to check their T values on certain things. So, and I love it. I love T value. Bob and I were doing one yesterday, and I was like, yes, so much fun.
Do you have a calculator, or did you use the online program?
I think he had the downloaded version. I
Uh,
personally have that, and then I have every single calculator you possibly could want. So, each organization that I've worked for requires a different one. I worked at Fifth Third for a little while, and we had to use what I call the dinosaur. But actually, you had to learn how to use that one effectively, and that one on the fly. I mean, it's counterintuitive to how I was taught how to do certain things, but I mean, just incredible. It's fun to
sure,
learn assets and have all the different tools.
it's fantastic. I mean, this conversation, you could just keep going on and on and on, based on our backgrounds and your
Yeah.
approach to business. But I do want to make, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Honey, I'm in the middle of a thing. I'm gonna have to get back to you after, okay? Love you. What's the
Mom, but Mom, I called and you did not answer.
answer? And when is my play date? Like something this year that I need to add to my CV because it's tough. The play date coordinator. How? Like there are a few people in the neighborhood who are just fantastic. I mean, it is like a social calendar. I'm like, listen, you got to bring it to me. I know like five people that well, I have the numbers of five people and that's what I can do right
Yeah. Or it's like, oh, I'm doing this, or the kids get out at like 1 o'clock. And I'm like, all right, well, school, you can keep them for the next 2 hours until I can actually get there.
now.
Got things to do.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. There's a bunch of snow outside. Go play with that.
yeah, right? Go watch Frozen. Do you want to build a snowman? Yeah, go build a snowman.
Literally build a snowman. Another
But
New Year's resolution. I'm going to try and get everybody in my family to lessen the amount of the word literally.
yeah, good luck. Good luck. But Liz, I do ask everyone who comes on the program to give me a
Mhm.
little fun fact about themselves. So, outside of what you do at RAS and equipment finance, what do you enjoy doing?
Um, well, I don't have time for too many hobbies, but something I look forward to getting back to. So I actually have my dive master certification. So before I got into finance, I was going to be a marine biologist. And that was one of my big hobbies was scuba diving. So I went through the whole
Yeah,
course to become a dive master, and that's how I ended up in Florida. I
nice.
was I'm going to go to school for marine biology, and I'm going to work as a dive master, and it's going to be fantastic. And then about 2 years in, and you start thinking about what you're going to do for a job. I was like, well, none of those are swimming with dolphins, which is what I wanted to do. So
I mean, uh,
I switched into marketing at that point, and then that's when I took the core business classes, and I took my first finance class, and I was like, "Ooh, I get this. This is actually like easy." So that's honestly how I switched to finance. Like I can get through college doing finance because it just makes sense. Any of that higher level math that's using imaginary numbers or concepts, no, no, no. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of actual numbers.
theorize this. No, I'd rather not.
Yeah, but I haven't been scuba diving in 10 years. But once my kids, I think you can become a junior diver somewhere between 10 and 12 and maybe do like a resort course. So like that's this next phase. Now that the kids are almost of age, definitely going to
Yeah,
be getting.
last interview I did was with Bruce Winter. I don't know if you've
Mhm.
met him yet, but
Mm-mm.
that's his passion.
Is it?
Uh, Dives all over the world. Um,
Oh, it's just
so
so cool. It's a completely different world and it's like you can't hear anything. It's all about being, and they don't want you to move fast. It's all about being slow. So in this like fast-paced world that we live in, like getting underwater, oh, it's just
You
incredible.
so I can put one of those transmitters in your helmet and then just have Bob pipe in.
Oh my
You're like
God.
100 feet down.
Oh no, I'd force him down there. Uh,
Can't do anything. It's like, get out of my head. Get out of my
well, he's in there even if he's not calmed in.
head.
What would Bob Rinaldi do in this situation?
Yeah, so bad.
Oh,
That's fantastic. What's interesting is my two schools that I was down to in '99 before I made my decision were West Virginia for forensics because they had the FBI program on site.
ooh.
Agent, right? And then it was Hawaii Pacific University for marine biology. So you talk about two totally different schools. And I
Oh,
chose,
I now want to see. I want to see your Myers-Briggs stuff now and the career assessments. Because if you're anything like me, and it kind of sounds like you are, these were supposed to help you find a career, and it couldn't. Like they're like you could be a firefighter or an accountant. It's like,
and then I went to West Virginia because I was like, okay, I can't really fly to Hawaii. Family didn't have a lot of extra cash for that, and it's like, okay, I need a real job, not going to Hawaii to, like you
yeah.
said, so doing that. Shark Week's only once a year. I mean, come on.
Oh, how amazing would that have been?
But and then I went there and I was like, I got the forensics, like the course load during orientation at West Virginia, which is a huge party school, and it was all these AP maths, all the fake maths, where you're just like, what else you got that's good? So I went to the business school there. So
Yeah,
hilarious.
I think. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's pretty cool. It's interesting now to be on the flip side of it. But yeah, I graduated in 2000, so you and I are right about the same time. But do you remember, like, I don't know if your parents did this, but it's like find something you love doing, right? Like that was like, if you love what you do, you're never going to work a day in your life. And it's like true, but if I take all my hobbies and make them work, then they don't become fun
That's right.
anymore.
We're like, oh God, like your job is amazing. Look at all the neat stuff you do. It's like, yeah, it's 20 years worth of networking. And I'm starting to like, yeah, I want to incorporate fun things into what I do because that's why I love this industry and love all the relationships.
Yeah, and it is, I mean, getting back to why I love this industry. I mean, it's equipment finance. So
Yeah.
like you don't have to sell the equipment. You get to run
No,
around and learn all about the different types of equipment. Like, are you kidding me? I got to one of my first really big programs that I established when I was at Leaf. It was an AV integrator, and they walked us through the Valley Sports facility.
okay.
You know, so and the guy who I'm not gonna say his name because honestly I can't remember it right now. Um, but it was this brand new state-of-the-art facility for live streaming baseball, right? So getting to see people that were in there that were doing the checks with the team that was on the ground, say in Arizona, for training camps, and then what it would do from that point and getting it currently, how they were cutting and measuring and then getting the commercials and clips together, right? Then take it back to how they used to do it, right? They talked us through like they would, I almost used the word, they would have to cut the cables for the length of how much time that they needed in between in order to get from one thing to another. Just the just mind blowing from where things started to where things are. And I would say when you find that person who understands that you need to do that and keeps up on it, like that's incredible. And that's a unicorn. Because some people are like, well, no, it's the way that it's always been done, and we're going to do that.
It's hard though. It's hard because you can't. I hate to be like, it's no meaningful change happens overnight. It's like gradual, little. So people are like, oh, well, you go into these things and like if they have like 30 problems, what can you do to help us? I'm going to knock out some of these low hanging things before I tackle the biggest ones, just to kind of give us some small victories. Because otherwise, there's no chance in hell we're going to get to those other ones.
I mean, I'm from your side of the business. That's like, I think that's one of the biggest challenges people are facing or organizations are facing right now is like, how do you get up to speed of where everybody needs to be for this next part of our industry? And sitting in a room, people talking about data mapping and consolidating systems, and like my eyes go cross, and I don't know how everybody manages all the things, but it is a huge thing to tackle, and there's a lot of different solutions. But yeah, I mean, if people aren't doing it, if they aren't talking to you now or, thinking about that, I just feel like they're so far behind.
Just takes time. Just takes time.
Well,
Well,
what a
Liz,
good
this has been great. I apologize. I think I didn't even get to like half the questions I really wanted to ask you, but it's been a very engaging conversation.
No, it's been so fun.
Make sure we get you back on here at some point. No, we'll do wait another 6 months, and then we'll be like, so are we still in a good spot? Because life as a consultant is not easy. It's not. Everyone's like, oh yeah, I can do that, and it's like, no. I mean, you can, but
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, you're right. I think let's do this again in 6 months. Maybe we'll live stream it from the escape room. We
oh,
can,
that'd be fantastic. We can raise some money for EF Cares. We'll get Bob in there, and then
yeah.
let's one other personality from our industry in there, and just see how it goes.
Ooh, Gen fans.
Oh, that would be fantastic. I'm just gonna sit in the corner and drink the whole time. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
I think we'll all need a strong drink after that. But imagine like 4 people who could be really, really intense and then just crack up because.
Oh yeah. Like, what did you say? Go. There's a dunce cat in the corner. Go put it on. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I'm out.
Well, now this has to happen.
Well, awesome. Greatly appreciate your time today, and look forward to seeing you probably at the end of this month when you're out here in Arizona.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on. This has been an absolute blast. I can't wait until we do it again.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks, Jesse. Talk to you later. Bye.